Let us see how we can configure alerts using Cloudera Manager. When it comes to configuring alerts, there can be a number of alerts that can be set up so that we actually notify whenever certain issues occur. However, we'll be taking excessive disk fill as an example because it is highlighted as part of the curriculum for CCA 131 under the Manage the Cluster category. If you recollect, as part of the setup process, we have set up Cloudera Management Service. One of the components that are set up as part of Cloudera Management Service is nothing but Alert Publisher. You can click on this service here and you can see the Alert Publisher component. So this is the one which is primarily responsible to send alerts to the support staff whenever certain issue occurs. That being said, before we go ahead and configure the alerts, first of all, we need to ensure that Alert Publisher is set up. In this case, it is set up. If you don't see Alert Publisher here, then you have to expand this and click on Add Role Instances, and you should actually add the Alert Publisher here. As the Alert Publisher is already configured, we are not seeing the option here. Otherwise, we will be seeing option here. If you want, you can actually delete the Alert Publisher and you can come here and you can configure Alert Publisher again on the node which you want to run all the components with respect to the Cloudera Management Service. In our case, it is running on Big Data Server 1. Let me click on back here. Once we have the Alert Publisher, we can click on that component and then we can actually go to the configuration. Click on Service Configuration and you should be able to configure several properties with respect to alerts. However, before we actually come here, we also need to ensure that for each and every service, the alerts are enabled. Unless the alerts are enabled for each and every service, you will not be able to get alerts with respect to that service. So to validate, we can actually go to HDFS and we can go to configuration and then we can search for alert. You can see there is an option called enable service level health alerts. Unless this is enabled, even if alert publisher is running, even if we configure alerts, we will not be getting the alerts with respect to the HDFS service. Like this, we might have to go through each and every service and we have to configure service level health alerts for that corresponding service. This additional option, enable configuration change alerts, is primarily to send alert if there is a change to the configuration properties by using tools like Cloudera Manager. In this case, it is not that relevant. That being said, we can go to the Cloudera Management Service once again and then click on Alert Publisher. Go to Configuration, click on Service Configuration. First of all, we need to enable this email alerts. Only then people will get alerts. And then we have to configure either SMTP or SMTPS. In this case, I am using SMTP. In typical production clusters, we might have to use SMTPS. If we decide to use either of them, we have to get the mail server hostname, username and password. In our case, we are just passing the hostname. We are using simple SMTP server that is available as part of CentOS 7. We will not be doing any other configuration with respect to the mail server. However, when it comes to production clusters, you need to spend some time here. Most likely, you have to choose SMTPS. And then you have to use mail server hostname, username and password. This is primarily to send alerts from that server. And then you can configure mail from address. Typically we leave no reply at some meaningful name here rather than localhost. And then we have to configure mail message recipients. So in this case, we have to configure our support staff mailing list or individual mail IDs. So in this case, I will be using dgadiraju@itversity.com. And rest of the stuff, you don't need to worry too much about it. Now we can actually save changes. Let's refresh this page. It is asking us to restart this service. Before we restart this service, we'll also review some other properties and then we'll come back to this. To actually configure alerts, we have to go to administration, alerts. So whatever we have seen earlier is primarily to configure alert publisher, not the alerts themselves. Now to actually configure the alerts, we have to come here, administration and then alerts, and then you can see alerts in different categories. Some of the categories are based on the services such as HBase, HDFS, Hive, etc. And there is a category called as hosts also. So you can actually configure alerts with respect to hosts as well. Now when it comes to excessive disk fill, it is predominantly based on HDFS and hence we can actually click on HDFS here. To customize any of the alerts with respect to HDFS service, we can click on edit here and you should see all the alerts related to HDFS service. Especially with respect to the disk fill, it is data node related stuff. So we can actually click on data node and then you can scroll down and there are bunch of alerts here. One of the alert is data node data directory free space monitoring absolute thresholds. So in this case, warning threshold is 10 gigabytes and critical is 5 gigabytes. Whenever we reach the scenario where the available capacity on a given data node is less than 10 GB, we'll get a warning. If it is less than 5 GB, then we'll get critical. As of now, our data nodes are configured at 60 GB storage, and hence we can easily run into that issue if we actually copy good amount of data into the cluster. We can also configure these alerts based on percentages. Okay, there is no option to choose percentages here. These are absolute thresholds. These are not percentage thresholds. There could be additional property with respect to percentage thresholds. Let us see. Yeah, so you can see the percentage thresholds here. As of now, they are disabled. If you want, we can actually change it to specify, and we can give 10% for warning and then 5% for critical. So these are percentage thresholds. We can save changes, and you can see that these alerts are configured in HDFS service. So when we click on HDFS and then edit alerts, again it actually take us back to the HDFS service, but it highlighted only alerts for us. It did not highlight all the properties with respect to HDFS in this case. That being said, we can click on save changes here, but we haven't restarted the management service after reconfiguring the alert publisher with our email ID, and hence we have to go away from here, click on Cloudera management service and click on this one. Say restart Cloudera management service. Once the service is restarted, as of now there are several issues on our cluster. We'll start getting alerts for all those issues. Now the service is restarted. Let's click on finish. However, we are not getting emails to our mailbox, even though there are so many alerts that are being pushed to the recipient email address. We need to troubleshoot the issue. For that, we need to go to the node on which Cloudera management service is running, which is nothing but the gateway node in our cluster. Switch to user root and then go to var log and then open mail log file. And if you scroll down, you can see that there are some issues with respect to network is unreachable as well as connection timed out. One of the reasons could be because SE Linux is enabled on the server, and hence we need to open up the ports related to postfix, which is actually sending the emails from this mailbox into whatever recipient email address that is configured as part of alert publisher. I'm not 100% sure about how to enable this with respect to SE Linux. What I would recommend you is just open etc SE Linux config, change enforcing to disabled here, and then restart the machine and see if it actually resolves the issue. Even though we did not do this on our server, on other cluster where we have Cloudera setup, we have configured the alerts, and without making any changes to the SMTP related stuff or postfix related stuff, we started getting alerts. However, we have disabled SE Linux. That's the only difference between the gateway node of that cluster on which Cloudera management service is running and the gateway node of this cluster on which the Cloudera management service is running. So try to disable SE Linux and see if it actually resolves the issue. As of now, the main intention is to show you how to configure alerts, and that is being covered. There are multiple things which you need to keep in mind. The first one is, for each service, you need to ensure that alerts are configured, especially service level health alerts. And then as part of the Cloudera management service, we should have alert publisher, and you can go to that alert publisher and go to configuration, and you need to make sure that the recipient mail ID is added to mail message recipients. And also, if you are asked to change any alert configuration, you have to go to administration alerts, go to the respective service, and then click on edit, and then you should be able to review the alerts related to that corresponding service, and you should be able to reset the values as per the scenario which is given to you. At this time, we are primarily talking about the data fill. For that, we have to go to data node, and if you scroll down, there is data node data directory free space monitoring absolute thresholds and percentage thresholds, and we have seen that how to modify these values. Make sure you follow the scenario instructions and update the values exactly the way they are asking for. Okay, so this is how you can actually configure alerts on your cluster using Cloudera Manager.